Are you deliberately trying to spoil my evening? Why do you want to do me harm? Why do you hate me so?
I don't hate you.
Did you ever used to make resolutions?
Yeah?
Yeah. Like what?
Smoking cigarettes?
You quit that? Yeah.
Until his death, James Stewart kept this actress's picture on his desk. She was the one who fought studios on his behalf, preserved his career, and secretly mentored him every night. But Hollywood buried their story in a scandal. His best friend was her spouse. For years, she lived a block away from Stewart. Additionally, Stewart never mentioned her name in public after her unexplained death at the age of 50. For many years, the reality of their relationship remained a secret. Born in Norfolk on May 16, 1909, Margaret Brooks Sullivan came from a wealthy and influential family. However, her early years were devoid of laughter and dancing. She was unable to walk. She was born with weak legs. The doctors tried everything. They tried electric treatments, tight leg braces, and even spending a lot of time in the salty beach air, but to no avail. She spent the majority of her time in bed, lying on a couch in a dimly lit nursery. That's how it continued for nearly 7 years. She mimicked the noises of birds to kill time. She paid attention to everything. Her senses began to sharpen gradually. She later became well known on stage thanks to these abilities. Her father sent a message to Wall Street saying, "Walked," when she eventually got up and started walking on her own in March 1916. The market may close out strongly. She didn't stop once she was able to run. Margaret was following trolleys and sliding down coal chutes while other wealthy children were being taught how to be nice ladies. On Brambleton Avenue, she played stickball with immigrant and black kids. After arriving in a Pierce Arrow vehicle, she removed her shoes and concealed them behind garbage cans to run barefoot. In 1924, Margaret declined her mother's invitation to a tea party for other girls. Instead, she attended a boxing event and returned with a split lip. That evening, her mother wrote in her diary that she would never be welcomed at Mrs. Astor's. Her parents threw her a lavish celebration at the Norfolk Yacht and Country Club in 1927. From Hawaii, flowers were flown. Margaret was planning something else, but the Marine Band was coming from Washington. She enrolled at Sullins College using the proceeds from the sale of her gowns to a vintage store in Richmond. It was a little women's college in Bristol that featured a small theatrical club, but no ballroom or glitz. She read Shaw and Ibsen by candlelight in the attic while studying acting. She even faced consequences for posing as guys in the plays. She hitched a ride to Cape Cod in June 1929 while standing by the road with her thumb out. She was interested in trying out for the University Players, a theater company that performed in a wooden structure close to Old Silver Beach that cost $12,000. She received a part. Henry Fonda, a 24-year-old, was her co-star. Soon after, the quiet and reserved Jimmy Stewart arrived to assist with the set construction. They all shared a single restroom, lived in small beach shacks, and prepared 8 clam chowders using whatever they could find in the sand. Each time they missed a line, they were penalized 25 cents. Kerosene for the lighting was purchased using that money. Decades of friendships were forged during those fireside evenings. Sullivan gave Stewart a forceful shove. She had him speak his lines more quickly. She cured his stammer. He claimed to die. She made her Broadway debut on January 12, 1926. The play wasn't calm and graceful. It was Hello, Lola, a crazy musical. Margaret immediately caught the eye. She was referred to as a delinquent cherub by critics. For its period, the 47-night run of the musical was quite impressive. However, she made a significant risk in 1931. She starred in A Modern Virgin, a daring feminist play. Her character addressed Wall Street males about birth contraception. "Harlot," shouted some audience members. After 29 performances, the play was shut down. Halfway through, her parents left in embarrassment, but director Frank Borzage saw her bravery. He put her alongside Jimmy Stewart in The Mortal Storm years later. Margaret's 24th birthday, May 16, 1933, marked her arrival in Hollywood. Just yesterday, she went straight to Universal to see her film's first edits. She detested what she observed. It seemed phony to her. Her face appeared older, and she felt that her acting was stiff. She went to the studio and made a contract cancellation offer of $2,500. During the Great Depression, that was more than the majority of Americans earned in a year. They declined, stating that they had already spent more money on her examinations and outfit. She packed her car, purchased a ticket back to New York, and stormed out of the studio. At the airport, she was stopped by a studio employee. She consented to stay after a lengthy conversation, however, only if she could give her approval to the screenplay and prevent lengthy retakes. For a novice, that was uncommon. Young actresses were ensnared in 5-year contracts by studios back then. They controlled everything and made $350 a week. In Colombia, she was even offered $1,000 per week by Paramount. "No," she replied. "I want freedom." Rather, she agreed to a 3-year deal with Universal. She could spend every summer acting in plays, only had to do 2 movies a year, and received $1,200 a week. She took advantage of that agreement to depart town and play 169 gigs in stage door in 1936. She created Next Time We Love after her return. Attorneys detested her deal. Agents adored it. For other stars, they imitated it. It is still cited in law texts today as one of the earliest contracts that returned power to actors. Acting in movies is like digging ditches, according to Sullivan. She meant it. She detested the slow tempo, the constant retakes, and the heat. She timed the interval between cut and action, and only yesterday, using a stopwatch, it took her 37 minutes for each minute of usable footage. She presented the crew with the numbers. She retained her apartment in New York even after receiving an Oscar nomination for 3 Comrades. For $1,000, she claimed she would prefer to perform live in front of an audience 120 times, rather than pretending to cry in front of a camera for twice that amount. She was uncontrollable, even by Louis B. Mayer, the formidable CEO of MGM. He attempted to compel her to play alongside Clark Gable in 1938. She declined, citing a provision in her contract. In an attempt to frighten her, Mayer lost his rage and slapped a document on the table. She maintained her composure. Before playing a role she didn't enjoy, she declared she would quit Hollywood that same day and forfeit all of her earnings. When he signed a release, his hand was trembling. It was reported to the entire town. The headline, "Sullivan Plays Hardball with L.B.," appeared on Variety. Like her, other celebrities began requesting greater authority. The night was cold in late 1932. Behind a Broadway stage door, many young performers snuggled close to a radiator. They had just finished practicing Carrie Nation, a little comic play. James Stewart, a tall, ungainly 23-year-old, was one of them. He wasn't certain that he should be there. While on stage, his voice faltered. He failed to land his lines. He whispered to the others that he might give up and return to Princeton to complete his engineering degree. Before he could complete the sentence, however, Margaret Sullivan, who was only a year older, turned to face him and remarked, "Jim, you'll be the biggest discovery in Hollywood in 5 years. Recall what I said." No one chuckled. No one chuckled. No one even questioned it. She spoke as though it were already real. Stewart had missed 5 consecutive Broadway auditions at that point. Despite earning only $35 per week, Sullivan remained unfazed. After 4 years, Stewart had had enough of waiting. He was buried in 8 unmemorable MGM movies by January 1936. He wanted to leave because he was frustrated. He expressed his desire to terminate his 7-year contract to a talent scout, but Sullivan refused to listen. She made her move and became the biggest female celebrity at Universal. She approached Universal CEO Carl Laemmle Jr. directly and issued an ultimatum. Stewart would leave the stage at precisely 6 p.m. if he didn't get her to play her co-star in Next Time We Love. January 9th, filming would stop, and 180 workers would be out of a job. Already the movie had gone over budget. It would cost Universal $3,000 if it stalled. Thousands in fines. Laemmle then grabbed the phone and dialed MGM. He pleaded with them to give Stewart a 2-week loan. He promised to give Stewart $1,250 a week in exchange for Ray Milland. 4:42 p.m. was when MGM gave in. Sullivan signed her contract on January 8th, 41 minutes ahead of schedule. Although Universal acknowledged that the risk cost $22,500 in overtime, it was well worth the investment. They said that the buzz generated by that performance could not have been purchased by any PR campaign. Stewart had the opportunity. His nerves were still there, but he had to deliver now. So, director Edward Griffith was constantly yelling at him on site. He would shout, "You're wobbling like a windmill." Whenever Stewart's towering body shifted out of position, Sullivan simply assisted. She didn't protest. She invited him to her villa at 4B on Melrose Avenue every night after filming. They started practicing lines at 7 p.m. under a naked 60-watt light. Till midnight, she demonstrated for him how to shed the stage voice and converse like a buddy, transforming his tense throat clearing into peaceful pauses. To let him know when he locked his legs on camera, she even wrapped a silk scarf around his knees. Together, they made a pacing sheet, filled with beat marks, arrows, and handwritten comments. Her archival papers still contain the sheet. Scene 42 was reshot on February 3. In a single try, Stewart got it perfect. The team gave a round of applause. A second take was not requested by the director. In order to preserve film, he produced the first slate. After that, he underwent a transformation. When filming The Shopworn Angel in early 1938, people spotted it once more. Veteran actor Walter Pidgeon leaned toward the script girl and watched Stewart practice. He said, "Look at Jimmy. The moment Maggie enters, he beams." Between takes, Stewart was generally quiet, but not with Sullivan present. He told her a joke. He included lines. The lights shone in his eyes. It was also seen by the camera crew. Stewart appeared to sparkle when she was in the frame, according to one cinematographer. When the two were together, they didn't require retakes. That week, MGM saved almost $8,000 on film stock alone. Whispering began. The studio offices were filled with rumors. Their night shoots required additional chaperones, but the chemistry was too obvious to conceal. That's what gave the movie its authenticity. It did not make everyone pleased. In 1934, Sullivan wed William Wyler, a director. By the end of 1935, their marriage was already in trouble, and Stewart was making matters worse. Following the completion of filming, Sullivan continued to provide Stewart private tutoring at her Beverly Drive home. However, Wyler began to appear. He would park his Packard across the street and observe the bungalow's lights. He allegedly stormed onto a Universal set one evening and yelled at Stewart, "Rehearsal should be done on your own schedule if you enjoy it so much." Everything came to a head on January 28. At a voiceover session in 1936, Wyler blew up. He claimed that Stewart was being surreptitiously led by Sullivan. It was too late for the studio boss to intervene. Within weeks, Wyler filed for divorce. No one overlooked the true significance, even though the official explanation was mental brutality and neglect. He believed that his wife and Stewart had a genuine relationship. The narrative may have ended there, but it took a turn for the worst. Sullivan wed Leland Hayward, a significant Hollywood agent, just 8 months after the divorce. A home at 1143 Roxbury Drive was purchased by them. The twist? Stewart was already renting a home at 911 Roxbury, which was only a street away. Stewart's adoring letters occasionally ended up inadvertently at the Haywards, the mailman joked. Colonists noted that they saw his baby blue Plymouth outside their home nearly every night. One even said that Mr. Stewart's bashful smile and Mrs. Hayward's platinum hair had been repeatedly seen in the moonlight. They all three made an effort to be courteous. They even played croquet on Sundays. Hayward and Stewart would play against David Niven and Sullivan. Ooh. However, the rumors continued behind the laughter. In 1939, Stewart's career took off, and MGM ordered him to relocate. Before Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was released, they wanted to avoid any scandals. James Stewart was 27 years old and insecure when he made his debut on the Universal lot in August 1935. He only had 17 lines of conversation on film. By the end of the first week, the director nearly replaced him because he moved too widely and spoke too slowly. Margaret Sullivan, however, prevented it from occurring. She had already been nominated for an Oscar. Something in him caught her eye. She summoned him to her dressing room each night. Together, they ran lines. To correct the stammer that would eventually make him famous, she had him practice tongue twisters while holding a cork in his teeth. he gradually altered. According to September 13th studio notes, he was now carrying romantic weight. His new genuine appeal was hailed by Variety when the film debuted on January 16, 1936. According to one MGM executive, he hardly recognized the returning man. Stewart kept a picture of him and Sullivan ever since. Framed on his desk till his death in 1997, the photo was taken during a break on Stage 12. They collaborated once more on the movie The Shop-Worn Angel 2 years later. The first day of filming was May 31, 1938. Walter Pidgeon, their co-star, confided in friends that he felt invisible by the second week. Each scene floated in the direction of Sullivan and Stewart. They had no intention of taking center stage, but it just occurred. Why'd it just occur? The July 21st preview cards primarily discussed Jimmy and Maggie's magic, despite the director's attempts to alter the camera angles to give Pidgeon more room. Even if her spouse was present, Stewart would wait outside her dressing room after filming to accompany her to her car. A Love Too Tender for War was the headline of a photo spread published in Life magazine. There were 8 pictures of Stewart and Sullivan on it. Pidgeon received one. In the month of the film's release, November 5, 1938, fan mail increased from 200 letters per week to 1,900. The chemistry was what people remembered most about the picture, which earned a meager $1.02 million. Hollywood knew at that point that this combination might dominate the screen. The Shop Around the Corner followed in 1940. It was directed by Ernst Lubitsch. Margaret refused to come out of her bed and crawled underneath it. She was discreetly accepted to the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic in New York thanks to friends. A false name was used to list her. The news media never learned she spent 10 weeks there, and in those days it cost over $15,000 or over $180,000 now. She demanded 2 daily meetings with depression specialist Dr. Frederick Hacker, a private room, and her own nurse. She was instructed to relax when she eventually departed in the middle of May. And stay away from work, but the harm was already done. Hayward had already submitted a request for complete custody. Even the most prominent gossip writers in Hollywood were unaware of her collapse. Only her daughter's 1977 biography revealed the truth. The custody battle continued. What little strength she still had was broken. The hearings took place between the end of 1955 and the beginning of 1957. Hayward's hearing loss was even used against her by her attorneys. They said that because she might not be able to hear children's cries, she couldn't be trusted to look after them. Harold Kaufman, the judge, decided in favor of Hayward. Only on vacations was Margaret permitted to visit her children. Everything was stated in a letter she wrote to Jimmy Stewart in December 1956. The house closed while they were gone. It screams because it is so motionless. She lost weight to 92 pounds in a few weeks. Suicidal ideas were recognized by her physician. Brooke recalled how she would pace at night, certain that someone was on the roof. She was positive that her phone had been tapped when she called her ex-husband Henry Fonda at dawn. She filled the windows with towels. She claimed that by jamming kitchen knives into door frames, the listening devices would be blocked. Her loss of hearing and grief had combined to become intolerable. She was practicing for the Deep Blue Sea in February 1957. According to audiograms, her right ear could only produce around 15% of her hearing. Even worse was her left ear. The producers promised to pay her even if they replaced her. "I'd rather miss cues than miss rent," she added. Critics complimented her energy when the play debuted in March. They were unaware that she frequently used lip reading to estimate her lines. She had no choice but to continue. Her finances had been depleted by her divorces from Henry Fonda, William Wyler, and Leland Hayward. She was also covering her 3 children's tuition. She went on a summer tour despite her physician's advice to stay away from loud noises. The loudness of the orchestra pits exacerbated her problem. She required a specialized bone conduction headset backstage by the conclusion of that season, which would subsequently become commonplace for actors who are deaf. Her housekeeper unlocked room 2612 at the Taft Hotel in New Haven shortly after 5:30 p.m. on the first day of 1960. No knocks had been answered by Margaret. She was in her practice pants and cardigan, lying across the bed inside. Page 78 of her sweet love remembered script was unfinished. She circled her next line in red. On the table were a glass of ginger ale and another container that had been filled with 30 capsules 2 days prior. There were only 16 remaining. Since 1948, she had lost about 40% of her hearing. She had had dinner with her husband, Kenneth Wagg, shortly before 4 p.m. The door was locked from the inside when he got back less than 2 hours later. She was taken to a local hospital by paramedics, but it was too late. They pronounced her dead. 6:5 p.m., the first famous person to pass away in the new decade.